The wind howled like a living creature across the frozen valley, dragging icy needles across her cheeks as she crawled through the snow. The moon had slipped behind a wall of clouds, smothering the mountains in darkness. Only the faint blue shimmer of the snow reflected enough light to guide her path as she pushed forward, 1 inch at a time, through the brutal, unforgiving cold. Sergeant Elara Hayes, call sign Frostbite, was the only one left. Her entire recon team had walked into an ambush in this remote Arctic border zone. An operation that was supposed to last 2 hours had turned into a nightmare of explosions, buried mines, and a swarm of hostile fighters who knew the terrain better than anyone could have predicted. The snow now covered the footprints of her fallen teammates, as if the earth itself wanted to erase what had happened. Her breath puffed through her balaclava in ragged clouds. Every inhale felt like inhaling knives. Every exhale carried the metallic taste of survival. She shouldn't have been alive, but she was, because she had escaped. Now she was crawling across the ridge line, one knee dragging slower than the other. A fragment of shrapnel still sat somewhere inside her thigh, burning like a brand every time she moved. But stopping wasn't an option. Not now. Not when nearly 50 friendly soldiers were unknowingly marching straight into the same kill zone where her team had been wiped out. She was the only one who knew, the only one who could warn them, and maybe the only one who could save them. The wind roared again, carrying distant cracks, gunfire. Not close, not far. Half a kilometer away, maybe more. She forced her body to keep crawling, fingers numb as she squeezed them around the stock of her long-range rifle. An L-115A 4 sniper platform with an extended barrel built for extreme weather. She had one mission left. Reach the overwatch point, send the warning, and make the shot that, if it came to that. Snow slapped against her goggles, visibility blurring to white haze. She blinked hard. No shapes, no silhouettes, no movement, just endless white. But her instincts refused to stay silent. She felt something carving through the wind, some vibration in the ground beneath the snow. The enemy was moving, and fast. She pulled herself behind a jagged formation of frozen rock and slumped against it. Her heart hammered inside her chest, each beat pulsing through her frozen fingertips. She ripped her glove off with her teeth and pressed trembling fingers to the radio strapped to her vest. Bravo, Actual. This is Frostbite. Her voice came out hoarse, brittle, nearly swallowed by the wind. Do you copy? Anyone copy? Only static answered. She exhaled sharply, breath fogging her visor. The burst jammer she'd heard in the ambush. Of course. The hostile forces were using wideband interference over this entire valley. Her radio would be useless until she reached higher ground. She checked her map, creases frozen stiff, the ink faint. She had to climb the ridge to get a clean signal out a 2-hour climb. Under open sky, with hostiles hunting and a storm growing teeth by the minute. She closed her eyes, then forced them open. Quitting wasn't possible. Her team hadn't died for nothing. She would make sure their last intel, the troop movement scheduled at dawn, did not end in another massacre. She shoved the map away, gritted her teeth, and started moving again, her knees carving two thin paths in the snow. The mountain groaned under the wind, long, icy cracks echoing like distant thunder. Then crunch. Not hers, her entire body froze. Crunch, crunch, crunch boots. Multiple. Moving fast, she rolled on her stomach, raised her rifle, and peered through the scope. Snow blasted across her lens, coating it with frost. She wiped it with her glove and sighted again. 3 silhouettes emerged through the whiteout, black shapes against the glowing snow. Scouts, enemy scouts. They were sweeping the ridge, checking for survivors, checking for her. She held her breath, adjusting the scope slowly. The crosshairs settled on the lead scout's chest. Trigger squeezed at a whisper of recoil. The figure crumpled without a sound. The second whipped around, but the storm swallowed his shout. She chambered another round and fired again. 2 down. The third sprinted into the storm, disappearing behind a curtain of swirling snow. That one would warn the others. She didn't hesitate. Elara slung her rifle and began crawling faster than her body wanted to allow. Pain flared through her thigh, stabbed through her ribs, clawed down her back, but she forced it all down. Muscle was temporary. Mission was everything. She dragged herself higher. The storm grew thicker, heavy flakes sticking to her uniform and gear. Her eyelashes froze together, forcing her to blink constantly. Every breath fogged her goggles until she finally ripped them off and stuffed them into her pack. Visibility dropped to barely a few meters. The storm wanted to bury her alive. The mountain wanted her dead, and the enemy wanted her found at a triple threat. Perfect. She reached the first ridge, shelf, an exposed, wind-blasted ledge hanging above a steep drop. Her lungs rattled with the effort, breath hissing through clenched teeth. She planted her fingertips into the ice and pushed herself onto the ledge, then stopped. Her blood ran cold. Not from the weather, but from a sound at a soft click beneath her palm. Pressure. Her eyes widened out of mind. She had crawled directly onto a pressure-triggered frost mine, the same ones that had wiped out her team hours earlier. For a moment, time froze. Her heartbeat became the only sound she could hear. Not the wind, not the storm, not even her breath, just the steady thump, thump, thump of life. Threatening to end in a single snap, Elara swallowed, forcing calm into her veins. Her hands trembled violently, but she pressed herself as still as she could. Sweat stung her eyes despite the cold. Her mind raced through possibilities, calculating weight distribution, snow density, the angle of her body, and voices shouting, footsteps. Not far behind her, the enemy scouts had returned, dozens of them. She clenched her jaw so hard she tasted blood. She couldn't move. She couldn't fire. She couldn't even shift her weight. One wrong twitch, and she would be gone, silently, instantly, swallowed by the snow. Her breath quivered as the voices grew louder, closer, clearer, sharp consonants carried by the wind. Orders barked in a language she didn't speak. Then, flashlights, beams cutting through the snow. They were searching the ridge. She was trapped, pinned by a mine, unable to defend herself, unable to escape. She pressed her face into the snow, letting the storm bury her shape. Flakes landed on her back, her legs, her hair, camouflaging her into the ridge. Boots stomped closer to a flashlight beam swept across the ledge. She shut her eyes, prayed the snow would hide her. Boots stopped just meters behind her. One hostile shouted something. Another answered. The beam moved away. Seconds passed. Long, heavy, unbearable seconds. Finally, the voices drifted away. The footsteps faded. Silence returned. She released a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Then, slowly, she opened her eyes. She had survived, but she was still on the mine. And the mission wasn't over. She needed to free herself. She needed to climb higher. She needed to warn her allies. And, if it came down to it, she needed to make the impossible shot, a shot no one would believe, a shot no one else could take, a shot across nearly 3 kilometers of blizzard-choked, storm-twisted, frozen hell, the shot that could save every soldier marching blindly toward death. She gritted her teeth, then moved, millimeter by millimeter, muscles shaking, nerves screaming, breath shallow, heart pounding. She shifted her weight off the mine with surgical precision, distributing her body's mass across her elbows and knees. Minutes stretched into eternity, and then, her palm lifted from the pressure plate. She froze. Nothing happened. She slid her hand farther. Still nothing. After one more agonizing minute, she finally pulled herself free. Her body crashed onto the snow beside the mine, breath exploding from her lungs in a choked gasp. She had escaped, barely. She forced herself upright, legs shaking, and started to climb again. The storm clawed at her. Darkness thickened around her. The enemy patrols multiplied below her. But she kept climbing, focused, determined, unbroken, because she knew the truth. The battle hadn't begun yet. Not until she reached the summit. Not until she got the signal out. And not until she lined up the shot that would change everything. A 2,900-meter shot in a blizzard, an impossible shot. But she had no other choice. That if she failed, every soldier would die. That if she succeeded, they would live. Simple. And Elara Hayes never failed. Not when it mattered. The ridge narrowed as she climbed higher, wind lashing. Her sides, frost forming across her hair. Her entire body ached with cold, so deep it felt like her bones were cracking. When she finally pulled herself onto the upper plateau, she collapsed to her knees, gasping. The sky opened slightly, revealing faint stars behind swirling clouds. She lifted her radio again. "Bravo, Actual. This is Frostbite. I need reinforcements diverted immediately." "You're walking into a..." The radio crackled violently, drowning her voice, still jammed. She clenched her fists. Then she saw a faint blinking red light across the valley. She knew that signaled a jammer tower, camouflaged in the snow, guarded, hidden, and close enough to hit. If she could get a clear angle. She lowered her rifle onto the snow, extended the bipod, and peered through the scope. Visibility flickered. Wind hammered the lens, but she saw it. Barely a silhouette. .1 shot would take out the jammer, restore communications, and save everyone. She adjusted her scope. The wind screamed. Her fingers shook. She exhaled. Hard, steady, clear. Her eye locked onto the target. Her finger touched the trigger, and that's when she heard it. Boots. Behind her. Close. Too close. She turned. A rifle barrel met her forehead, and the soldier holding it smiled. Before she could react, he pulled the trigger. The muzzle flash burned white against the storm, but the bullet never hit her, because the hostile soldier had pulled the trigger on an empty chamber. A dead click that he froze, confused. She didn't. Elara lunged forward, slamming the side of her rifle into his jaw. He staggered back, slipping on the icy ledge. She swept her leg across his knee. He dropped instantly, and before he could recover, she drove her elbow into the side of his head. His body went limp, swallowed by the snow. Her heart hammered. She dragged herself back to her rifle, wiped the frost off her scope, and peered down the mountain. The patrols below were regrouping. Flashlights swept wildly. They knew she was here, and the storm was thinning. Visibility would soon return for everyone. She didn't have minutes. She had seconds. She slid into prone position, steadying her rifle against the icy ground. Her blood smeared into the snow, where her thigh wound reopened, but she pushed the pain aside. Across the valley, the jammer tower flickered like a heartbeat, blinking, daring her. She checked her rangefinder. .2, 900 meters, a distance that shouldn't be possible in this wind. But she wasn't shooting in perfect conditions. She was shooting in memory of the 7 soldiers who died beside her. She inhaled, held it. The storm's howl softened into a low hum. She adjusted for wind. 8 clicks left. Temperature, -30. Drop. Over 2 meters. Then her finger found the trigger. Her pulse slowed. Her vision tunneled. The world narrowed to a single blinking red light. She exhaled and fired. The recoil thumped in her shoulder. Muted, controlled, perfect. The round disappeared into the white out, vanishing long before reaching the target. She didn't blink, didn't move, didn't breathe. Then, a tiny spark in the distance, followed by a metallic burst of light. The jammer tower exploded. Static vanished from her radio instantly. She grabbed it with shaking hands. "This is Frostbite. Enemy ambush on the valley floor. Pull back now. I repeat, pull back immediately." The reply came fast, panicked alive. "Frostbite, thank God. We read you. Redirecting units now." Relief punched through her chest so hard she almost sobbed, but the moment didn't last. Gunfire erupted behind her. The surviving enemy scouts charged up the ridge, shouting, firing wildly. Bullets tore through the snow around her, snapping past her ears. She grabbed her rifle and sprint-limped toward the far ledge. Every step exploding with pain that a helicopter's roar cut through the storm. She looked up at a rescue bird burst through the clouds, spotlight sweeping the ridge. "Frostbite, we have visual. Hold your position." She turned, fired 3 shots down the slope, forcing the enemy to dive for cover. Snow sprayed around her like shrapnel as rounds ripped into the ledge. She kept moving, her legs shaking, her breath cracking. A rope dropped from the chopper. "Grab on." She leapt. Her hands caught the rope. The chopper lifted her into the freezing air as dozens of hostile fighters swarmed the ridge below. The valley shrank beneath her. The storm broke open, and for the first time all night, she breathed. The mission was saved, the soldiers were alive, and her impossible 2,900-meter shot would be remembered forever, told and retold, shared again and again on her brave stories.